Hey everybody, today we're going to be taking a look at this, the Aries tank by Goocig, right here on my vaping place. Hey everybody, Joe here. Nice of you to join me today. Thanks for coming. Okay, what we're going to be taking a look at today is this, the Goocig Aries tank. Now, this is probably as simple a simple tank as you can get. It's bottom fill, single coil, horizontal coil, plenty of cotton in there, has pre-built coils that you can get, as well as a RBC, or as they call it, deck, which is actually a rebuildable deck, an RBA deck. This tank has got a couple of issues. I'm not going to pull no punches here. This has got a couple of little issues. We'll get into that a little bit more when we get down to the build deck and we start taking a look at it, and then also when we come back upstairs and start talking about it. Okay? Yeah. This is not going to be a total rip job, but this is also not going to be a gush fest. This is going to be a rather neutral review. This tank has its good points, it has its bad points. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it. See you down below decks. Okay, folks, here we are down on the build deck. We're going to be taking a look at this today, the Goocig Aries tank. As you can see on the front of the packaging, it says Aries. This is the contents of the packaging: complete tank, RCC coil, one extra RCC coil. This comes with one built into it, and one Pyrex glass tube, which is the actual tank itself. We're also going to be looking at this, the RBC, the rebuildable deck, but more about that in a minute or two. Let's take a look at the Aries right now. This is what you're met with when you open up the tank. Okay, you have the tank itself, you have the extra coil, and you have the extra glass tube, as they refer to it. This is your tank glass. And it's a good thing that they do, because this is a very special design on this glass. As you can see here, it's very Nautilus-esque in its design. This is the extra coil. Both of the coils that came with this are rated at 0.5 ohms, 15 to 30 watts. I will tell you right now, neither of these coils were 0.5 ohms. Neither of them. The one that's in here came in at 0.7. This one came in at 0.85 ohms. Yeah, neither one of these coils was the 0.5 that it was supposed to be. Let's take a look at the tank. Oh, just so you can see, nothing else came in the bottom. Okay, nice closed cell foam. Protects it very nicely. This is a very, very simple little tank. You have your drip tip here. I have not used this drip tip because I just don't like the way it feels, the way it tastes. It just doesn't taste right. I'm sorry, I didn't use it. This is the tank itself. It is a nice, very simple little tank. 510 connector on the bottom. As you can see, that pin does not protrude very much from that, even though it does have an insulator in here. This is not a very good insulator. It is almost like a silicone plastic. It is not PEEK. It is not anything that will melt if you try to use this on a hybrid mech mod. It also, as you can see, is quite flush. Don't use this on a hybrid mech mod. Whatever you do, please don't. I don't want to see you having any issues. The tank is a bottom fill tank. You open this up like so. Excuse me. Fill your juice up in there. To clean it, you simply remove this nut here. Pop this out. This is the silicone here that holds the glass into place. It would be nice if they had supplied extra silicone gaskets for this thing, because there were a couple of times when I was trying to clean this tank and I had this silicone gasket off and it tried to go AWOL down the drain. Now, if that had happened and I hadn't had the strainer in the sink, well, you can imagine. Okay, so that goes in there. You push this up into place. The silicone seats itself. It's nice and juice tight, watertight, the whole 9 yards. It screws right on here, like so. And it holds very nicely. So we'll put that over there for now. This is your coil head. Like I said, this coil head and the one that's in here are both rated at 0.5 ohms, 15 to 30 watts. This came in at, I believe, I said it was like about a 0.7. This one came in at a 0.85, somewhere around there. Neither of these two coil heads, 0.5 ohms. Also, one of the things that I originally liked about these coil heads is that these were a horizontal coil head. As you can see here, goes in like so. Let me get a pair of pliers out here. Pop out your insulator, and well, you can see this isn't going to come out too easily. Maybe you can see it in there. It's a horizontal coil. It's about 5 or 6 wraps, Canthal A1. Yeah, it's a very, very simple coil head. Very simple coil head indeed. As you can see from the gouge marks on here, I have tried to remove this top piece to see if it was able to be removed. That is very, very tightly press fit in there. That doesn't come loose. This coil head, you're not going to be able to re-wick this coil head. I thought that you might be able to, but you're not going to be able to. Just not going to happen. And as you can see there in the base, you may be able to see in the base, this is not a straight cylinder inside of here. At this point down here, there is a little cantilever that reduces it down to the size of the neck here. So yeah, you can't even put the coil head in from this end. Just not happening. So yeah. Silicone gaskets on here. Very cheap silicone. Over time, I have a feeling that the silicone on here is going to degrade. Likewise, with the top piece on here, I would love to have seen them give me an additional set of silicone gaskets in here. Didn't happen. This has a click-stop airflow. It has 3 airflow holes on the back of the tank, none on the front. Front's taken up with the name of the company. As you can hear, click stops on each one of them. You have 3, you have 2, you have 1 hole, air hole open, then the next one is closed, and that's it. Okay. In the bottom there, you see a silicone gasket, which is for insulation. The center pin simply pushes into that silicone gasket and is easily removed. I would not in any way, shape, or form, as I stated before, even think about using this thing on a mech mod of any kind. You screw in your coil head like so, prime each one of those wick holes, as well as the wick in the center, like so. Attach this on here, and you're good to go. Now, what you just saw me do there is very important. Because, as you can see, when you put this on, if you look very carefully, you see that chimney? That chimney mates up with the hole in the coil head and makes it seat before this glass starts to seat on the silicone. So when you press down on it, it starts to screw into place properly. Okay? This is very important, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, just remember that. I'm going to take this apart again. I'm going to take this coil head out and put that to one side. Okay, let's take a look at the RBC deck. Now, the way you see this is I'm opening this up. This is how I got it. On the front of here, it says 1.5 ohm rebuildable coil, 100% US made Canthal wire coil. Okay. Organic cotton, screwdriver, 2 extra screws. This is the deck. This is the only package that came in here. 1.5 ohm Canthol coil, one little blue screwdriver, no extra screws, no cotton. I'm not worried about the cotton. I got enough cotton around here that I could turn around and it'll last me forever. But the screws, no extra screws. When I was rebuilding this thing a couple of times, the screws came off of the screwdriver. Not this one, but one of my Coil Master screwdrivers. Went flying across the room and onto the carpeted floor. Luckily, I had a very, very big honking magnet. I've been using this for a long, long time. Luckily, I was able to run it over the carpeting after about 10 minutes, and I was able to find the screw for this thing. I was freaking. Without the extra screw in here, this being lost would have been a catastrophe because I wouldn't have been able to build on this thing in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so let's take this open. That's your build deck. That is one of the tiniest build decks I have ever come across. Okay, this is the cap. As you can see, just how tiny that build deck is. Now, you see here where this line is here? That is the top of the cap. This comes down in here, and as you can see, it's very slightly domed, not much. But when that's on there, that comes down to approximately there. When this is on, you can see how close that coil is to the inside of that head. That's the reason why you see that coil in there reversed. The first time I tried to build it with this thing flipped 180 degrees around and the coil domed out like that, I was getting some really funky readings, and at one point it even showed a short. So this is how you have to build this, with the coil upside down. Like that. Okay? Now, another thing with this, because this is such a small build deck, and I'm going to use these as pointers, when you have the coil, the cotton in there, it comes down, there's very little cotton in here between this point here and where it comes into the coil. Very little cotton indeed. The flavor on this is excellent, but if you have, that is a 2.5 millimeter inside diameter. If you do your coiling like I do, where it's nice and snug in there, so that way you don't have a problem with dry hits, the amount of cotton that comes down here is going to flare out. When you clip it this short, it's going to flare out to the point where it's so far beyond the boundaries of these two posts that when you push it in, it chokes off the juice flow. That's going to lead to a dry hit, so you have to clip it back. When you clip it back, there's very little cotton in here. I have gotten some gurgling, not much, but it clears itself up very quickly. This deck needs a major redesign. And one of the major problems is this. Now, I'm going to put these two coils, the stock coil head and the RBC, together. I don't know if you can see that. This here, RBC, is 0.7 millimeters shorter than this. Okay? Just want you to get that into your head. This coil here is 26.925 millimeters from that point there to the top there. The RBC from that point there to the top of its coil head where it goes into the chimney is 26.225 millimeters. 0.7 millimeters shorter than this. Okay? You should be able to see that. Let me zoom this in. And let me focus in. Well, I guess that's about as good a focus as I'm going to get right now. As you can see, this RBC deck is shorter than this. Now, you're going to probably say, Joe, what's 0.7 millimeters? Well, this is what 0.7 millimeters does. When you put in this coil in here, the standard stock coil head, and you screw this into place, watch. You see how the chimney comes in contact before the glass comes in contact with the silicon. The chimney gets pushed into place, and as you push down on the silicon, the chimney screws into place properly. Just like that. You pull this out, no problems. Okay? Now, watch what happens with the RBC deck. You put this in, screw it into place. Now watch. As you push this in, the glass contacts the silicon before this little concave, this little cantilever section, whatever you want to call it, actually contacts properly. Now, that's fully seated, like so. As you can see in there, that screw is not in place. That screw is not into the hole. So when you press down on this and try to turn it, it stops. That's because that has just cross-threaded. And you try to put the arm on it a little bit, it's cross-threaded. Look, you see the Goocig name in there? See how that's turning? That's because the atomization chamber, the bell housing, is cross-threaded. That's what 0.7 millimeters does. You can see in there. Maybe you can see, maybe you can't. See that? That threading from the chimney is not in there at all. That's what 0.7 millimeters will do. That's it. And I don't know if you're going to see it in there, but there's a couple of tiny little pieces of metal in there, in that threading right now from just doing this. Even if you take this, and because of the cross threading, you try to fit this on here, it just doesn't want to go. It just does not want to work properly. It just doesn't. The deck is small. It's too tightly jammed in here. If this was 0.7 millimeters taller, I could put that coil flipped around the other way and have a lot more cotton in here. Okay? And make coiling this thing a whole hell of a lot better. Make rewicking this thing a whole hell of a lot better. That's your problem. And it's a serious problem. As you can see, it's a serious issue. It's a serious issue. Not only do you not get the extra grub screws in here necessary, just in case you lose 2 of them, you don't get the cotton. The design on this thing was an afterthought. I'm sorry, this RBC section, it's a total waste of time. And because of that, this tank is not going to get a recommendation or even a thumbs up from me. No, can't do it. I bought this thing because of the fact that it has the RBC deck. As you just saw, you can't even recoil the stock coil heads. You can't recoil the stock coil heads. The RBC deck is totally useless. That means you're going to be stuck using their pre-built coil heads. If you're stuck using their pre-built coil heads all the time, at $9.99 a pack of 5, that's just, well, figure, it's $10. It's $2 a coil head. These things here, they'll last you maybe 2 weeks. And if you should happen to accidentally burn the cotton in here, forget it. No, Sorry, folks, I cannot. I really cannot give this thing a recommendation in any way, shape, or form. Okay, having said all of this, let's get back up to FaceTime and talk about this a little bit more. All right? Meet you topside. Hey, everybody. Nice to see you made it topside. Okay. As I said before, I've got 5 pages of notes on this tank. Just well, you know what I'm talking about. 5 pages of notes. Okay? All 5 pages. Yeah, I hate... Oh, this camera's off a little bit. Let me move this. There you go. Okay. Let's get something straight right now. I hate to have to give a product a bad review. I will, if I must, because I am here as your reporter. I am the guinea pig to try pieces of equipment, try them out, see how best they worked, at least for me, and then to report back to you folks on what I found after working with a particular piece of equipment. Because for the simple reason, you cannot go out and buy everything. Hell, I can't go out and buy everything. A lot of reviewers get stuff for free. I get a few pieces here and there, but by any means, everything, including these, both of these, I bought them with my money. And because I buy them with my money, it saves you money from going out and wasting your time. I especially hate having to bomb a product that I spent my money for. Now, I don't want you to get the wrong impression here. This is not a total bomb of this tank. This is a good tank. The people who produce this spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort to make this tank. Okay? Well, it's got some issues. What piece of equipment doesn't? Seriously. Any piece of equipment made by a human being is going to have some kind of an issue. One or another. This tank, for the most part, if you stick to the stock coil heads and use this only in a regulated device, this is a good little tank, and it will give you very good service and very good flavor and very good cloudage, especially if you're like me, who likes a slightly restrictive, and I mind you, I said slightly restrictive direct lung vape. While I did try this direct mouth to lung, I was not impressed with it. Seriously. Okay? And please forgive the noise of the weed whacker going on outside. I have the window open. It's a beautiful day. It's Friday of the Labor Day weekend, and it is absolutely gorgeous outside. And I have to have the windows open in order to be able to deal with the lights that I've got around me here. And just because I just like the smell of the cut grass and everything else. So I'm sorry. But yeah, if you stick to just the pre-built coil heads, this is a good, simple little tank. Now, like I said, the coil heads are $9.99 each. The price of this tank is $15.99 direct from Goocig, which is www.goocig.com. Okay? They have a couple of different types of tanks there. You will enjoy this tank a lot. I know I did. I even enjoyed, when I was able to get it assembled properly, this RBC deck. Okay? The coil I have in here is 6 wraps around a 3mm mandrel of 26 gauge Canthal. Okay? It works nice. It gives me a 0.5, 0.6 ohm coil. And it vaped very nicely. The problem is getting this coil head to work properly in this tank, because this coil head, being 0.7 millimeters shorter than this coil head in here, is a bitch and a half. Excuse my language, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. This coil head, being 0.7 millimeters shorter, makes this thing almost unusable. I have a lot of patience, so I was able to make it work. My cousin Dottie, who I ordered this combination along with a 5-pack of coil heads, and I'm glad I did, and sent them over to her, okay? Cost me almost $50 to have it shipped directly to UK. She cannot use this coil head. She's a very, very mechanically inclined person, and she has big problems trying to get this fixed, trying to get this to work. I understand that. Not everybody is as patient as I am in trying to get things to work right. Yeah, that's where it's at. I have to give this a neutral thumbs position here. If you stick to the stock coil heads, if you don't mind sticking with a stock coil head tank, then this tank will work very fine for you. It will. If you're like me and you're as cheap as I am, and you want something to be able to last just in case the company should go belly up on you, and the coil heads no longer become available or be available, or if the FDA decides to cut off importation of anything and everything e-cig related from overseas, just because they got it up their butts to do so, irregardless of whether the tank was on sale and on the market prior to August 8th. If the company doesn't file a PMTA application, then they won't be able to sell this in 2 years. I think they haven't. I'm the convoluted regulations. I forget if they'll be able to sell this even after December of this year, December 2016. I'm not sure. I don't remember offhand. Like I said, those convoluted regulations. Yeah. The stuff that I buy because I want to be able to have stuff that I will be having a very, very small exposure should the FDA hit the fan. Okay? Very simple. That's it. If you buy this head to go with this tank, thumbs down. If you buy this tank strictly for the stock coil heads, okay. For the combination of the two, that's as best as I can do. Having said all of that, I will now leave you to whatever you're going to be doing. As I said, this is the Labor Day weekend, the start of the Labor Day weekend. I'm putting this up sometime later on this afternoon, this evening. I wish you and your family the very, very best of holidays. If you are overseas and you don't celebrate Labor Day on today, and Monday is not a holiday for you, well, I'm sorry. I hope you have a good weekend anyway. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the good Lord hold you in the hollow of his hand. And may you be in heaven a half an hour before the devil knows you're dead. Take care. God bless. Bye for now.